I'll call the Westbrook Planning Board for March 5th to order. First item, we have 3 public hearings to start. The way we run a public hearing is we ask for a presentation first, then we ask the staff for their comments, and then I open it up to the public to receive input. What I ask is if the public is going to speak, is they come to the podium over here and give us your name and your address. Once, if there are questions asked, I will note the questions and ask them after the public hearing is closed. Once all the public has had the chance to make their comments, then the public hearing will be closed and we will move on to the second public hearing. With that said, the first public hearing is Ledgewood Drive Regional Transportation Program. The applicant is proposing a new 8,500 square foot office building, 2-bay garage, and 11,760 square feet of enclosed parking structure and associated site improvements on an existing 5.46 acre vacant lot. It's tax map 2, lot 104, and the zone is industrial park district.
Thank you. My name is Sashi Meisner. I'm a landscape architect at Garin Turgeon Architects, and I'm here to present the One Ledgeview Drive project for RTP, or Regional Transportation Program. Here with me also today is a great RTP crew. We have Jack DeBaradinis, who is the executive director with RTP. We also have 2 board members from RTP, Brent McLaughlin and Michael Blaze. And also with us is Steve Bradstreet from Ransom Consulting Engineers. He is the civil engineer for the project. So we were here in January to present for the workshop. We had just a few comments from the board, and we've had a few comments from the staff, so we're going to try to make sure that we've addressed all of those with our presentation today. So I'll start with a little bit of an overview of the project, where it is and what we're doing, and then speak directly to the comments that we had. So this is the existing conditions plan. You can see the site is pretty much just an open field right now. There is little remnants of a foundation of a house that was once there back in 1987. It's no longer there, just a small foundation. Bits and pieces are there. The site slopes generally north to south. There's a small man-made wetland at the county road edge. It's mostly meadow. There's a little bit of woodland on site. We're going to try and retain most of that. Ledgeview Drive has all of the utilities within the road, gas, sewer, water, electric, so everything is right there. There is a moratorium on Ledgeview Drive, so we will be planning on cutting into Ledgeview in July of 2020 when that moratorium ends. Before I begin showing what RTP is, what we're proposing, I just want to give you a little background on RTP. If you aren't familiar with Regional Transportation Program, they're a great organization that provides low-cost transportation services for residents within Cumberland County. They provide services for disabled people, low-income people, elderly people, if you needed a ride to the doctor's office, ride to the store, things like that. So it's really a phenomenal service. This property location was actually optimal for them. It's very central to where they need to travel every day. So it was a perfect site, and they're very happy to be relocating in Westbrook. So this is their project. Not a whole lot has changed since the last time you saw this in January. The buildings are still the same size, 8,500 square foot office building, which is the southern building. The front part of that building is office. The back part is a 2-bay garage and then a wash bay, a drive-through wash bay. The building on the north side is the parking garage, so it's just a 1-story drive-through parking. RTP has 29 buses, so we'll be fitting those buses within there. Parking, they have 47 employees, 18 full-time, 29 part-time, as well as a lot of volunteers. So we're showing I believe there's 63 parking spaces on there right now. Most of the staff and visitor parking is focused on the southern part of the site, and the upper part would be the drive-through circulation for the buses. Let me see if there's anything I didn't cover. Utilities are along the southern part of the building. That's where the mechanical room is. So we have a generator, HVAC in the back of the office building, site circulation, walkways, and the main entrance for the building is on the garage side of the office building, and then there's also an entrance on the front of the building. Okay, go to the next one. This is the office building, so the first building, the building on the southern side of the site. You can see the two different roof lines. The front of the office building that is along Ledgeview is the lower roof line that has the office, the administration and dispatch offices. And then the rear is the a two-bay mechanic garage, and then the one drive-through wash bay. The building is metal siding and a metal roof. They did select colors now, so we have a cool gray stone, which is the majority of the building, and then there's a blue band that circles the entire building as an accent color. And then the roof is a black metal roof. So all of the canopies and the roof will be black. The signage, they're going to probably reuse their existing signage. So we're showing a sign over the main entrance door along the side of the building, and then there would be a sign facing Ledgeview on the upper part of the high roof line. Okay, next. The small image there is the garage. We'd have to zoom in to be able to see it closer, but it's basically has the same treatment as the office building, the cool gray stone for the majority of the building, and then the blue banding around the base of the building, and then the black metal roof. Okay, the next. So the last meeting, we had some comments regarding the planting plan. We've worked on this plan and focusing on selecting low-maintenance native trees to really give a street presence along Ledgeview, because there are some large evergreen trees as you go further up Ledgeview along the drive, so kind of continuing that same character down Ledgeview. We have a mix of large evergreens and nice deciduous trees along the main entrance, highlighting the entrance into the site. Once you get closer into the office building, we focused on more ornamental plants, things that would have texture and color and fragrance and forest season interest. So we focused some of the more high maintenance plantings around the main entrance and the front of the building. We are concerned with some areas where we're going to get some heavy snow loads off of the building as the snow melts and comes off of the building. So some areas we have left without plantings because of that, like against the garage. You can see there's limited plantings in that small area, really just concerned about snow loading there. And then on the office building, the roof pitches all towards the south, so we have an area there that we've left to hold the snow there through the springtime, and focus the plantings right along the walkway. So we have some large trees that are more columnar, close into the building, a mixture of perennials, some evergreens, and some shrubs. And then next. And then lastly, I'm just showing the development of the stormwater and the grading plans here. So The grading overall has stayed the same. We've refined the stormwater management slightly. So we're just surface runoff, collecting the water and creating a little basin at the base of the property where the water would filter in, water quality, and would be addressed, and then it would flow into the wetland in the existing wetland. And that's all I had. So if there's any questions.
Yep. Thank you.
The applicant was provided with several comments, which they have addressed. There is one edit that we would like to make to the conditions of approval. Under condition Under condition 3E, can you please edit that number to be $7,793? And under condition F, can you please edit that number to $389,651? Outside of that, staff has no further comments.
Thank you very much. We're to the point where we're going into the public hearing. Again, if somebody wants to make a comment, I ask you to come to the microphone and give us your name and your address. With that, is there anyone that would care to speak? Public hearing's closed. Next public hearing, site plan. 369 County Road, Central Maine Power. The applicant is proposing an approximately 4,247 square feet of expansion to relocate a control house at the existing electrical subdivision yard at the intersection of County Road and Spring Street. It's tax map 2, lot 30, and the zone is manufacturing and industrial park district.
Good evening. My name is Sean Hale. I'm from BHB, and I'm here on behalf of CMP to present the project and kind of talk about how what's happened prior to this hearing. Thank you. Just to provide a brief overview again of the project itself, it's a minor expansion of an existing electrical substation. This substation is about 2 acres in size, and CMP is proposing to expand the substation yard by about 4,250 feet. So it's about 1/10 of an acre that would be added to a 2-acre facility. The purpose of the project, this is a fairly old substation. It dates back to, I believe, the 50s, and is in need of improvements and upgrades to bring it to modern operating standards. So there's going to be some infrastructure improvements and the relocation of an existing control house. If you look here, this is where it is now, and it will be moved to the other side where the expansion is proposed. So that's really what necessitates the expansion of the facility, is to provide room for this relocating the control house. There are existing wetlands in the transmission right-of-way. It's a maintained electrical transmission right-of-way. But as a result, the expansion of the yard will result in about 4,000 square feet of wetland impact, so that's part of the project. We met with staff back in early January. We had a neighborhood meeting. We had a workshop with the planning board prior, and we've talked about the project with the staff, and we've received comments. I don't know if you want me to talk about the comments that we received. No?
You can.
I can? Okay. Since the last hearing that we had, we received planning board comments, and the main comment was a request to add paved aprons to the existing access ways off of Spring Street and County Road. Right now they are gravel access ways. They've always been gravel access ways since this station was constructed, and they've always they're adequate for the use. There's very little traffic in and out of the facility. It's not a manned facility, so it just requires periodic maintenance visits. But CMP heard that request, and in response to that request, we are now providing paved aprons at where the gravel roads intersect with the existing paved road surfaces, and the paved aprons will extend to the property line. So we heard that request and have added that to the plans as requested. We've also received our core authorization for the wetland fill, and we've provided a copy of that authorization to the planning board staff. We expect to receive our DEP authorization soon. We have yet to receive that, so when we do receive it, we will provide that as well. I think that is a pretty good summary of the project and what has brought us to the hearing tonight. So if you have any questions, we'll...
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
The applicant has addressed the comments or has provided us with, we've put those conditions within the approval. At this time, staff has nothing further to add.
Thank you. We're to the public hearing on this one. Again, I ask if anybody cares to speak, they come to the podium and give us your name and your address. Anybody interested in making a comment?
Yes, hello. My name is Dennis Marat, 41 Falmouth Street, here in Westbrook. I'm very, 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 very familiar with this location. Retired in 2012 after 41 years, Portland substations, Central Maine Power. This is a very important hub for all of Greater Portland. And one thought I had was, I've always had, was the security of the relay control house, as it's right out front. And it looks like the new one's going to be further in, a lot more security. There's a lot more updated, high-speed, logical, computerized protective systems in that little building now. There was an addition put on, I'm not sure how many years ago, but apparently it's outgrown its useful life. But my main concern was the security of the new building, and then also the security of the whole yard, because it's, as I say, it's a main hub for all of Greater Portland. Whatever comes in there and goes out. It's also connected with Calpine. I wish everybody good luck on this project. It's something that's been long overdue.
Did you work with Phil Prince?
Did I work with what?
Phil Prince?
Phil Prince?
Yes.
He was the first gentleman I worked with in 1971, 72.
Thank you.
A great man. He and Norman Smith.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Seeing none? Third public hearing. Site plan and shoreline zoning, 921 Main Street, Sappy North America Incorporated. The applicant is proposing the demolition and removal of 2 spillways associated with the Sacarapa Dam, the powerhouse, and modifications to the bedrock to create a fish passage, natural and Denelli Fishway up the falls in the Presumpscot River. This is tax map 32, lot 108, and lot 105A, and the zone is City Center District, General Development Shoreland Zone.
Thank you. My name's Barry Stem. I'm the engineering manager at SAPI in Westbrook. Next slide, please. So this is a brief outline of what we wanted to talk about tonight. Is project information, recent project public informational history, site as it is today, what's going to be happening at the site, site configuration after the project surrender, environmental changes, water quality, public benefits, FERC draft environmental assessment, executive summary of that, and then questions and comments. So this, for those of you that don't know, this is the basic project information. It's Sakarapa FERC License Surrender Project. It's owned by SAPI North America. The engineer is Akron Engineering Services out of Newport, Maine, is our primary engineering firm that's working on this. The tax map, as was just stated, is 32 lots 108 and 105A. City Center District and Rural District. Acreage to be developed. There's really there's no development on the site, but rather removal of existing structures to provide fish passage. The acreage on the site of those two lots is about 4.5 acres. There's various covenant deeds and easements on the application. Use of the property is industrial hydropower and no variant requests. A couple other items. The construction schedule. It's anticipated to start in the spring of 2019 and continue through 2021 to be ready for May 1, 2021 fish passage. Estimated construction cost of everything, including the removal of the spillways, powerhouse demolition and construction of the double denial fishway and modifications to the upper channels is estimated at about $5.5 million. So recent public informational and project history. Just a couple of bullet dates. I was counting them up. This is actually the 7th public meeting we've had on the project. Back in, and it started quite a while ago, as you can see by some of those dates. I don't think I need to read them all, but you know, we had a 3rd public meeting to inform the public about the status of the project back in 2015. In November of 2015, we had another public meeting to review the Maine DEP, MWDCA permit application and water quality certification applications. Back in December 15th, 2016, we had another public informational meeting to inform the public about the 2016 settlement agreement negotiated between the parties. March 28th, 2018, we had a 6th public information meeting related to the stakeholder consultation process for the FERC surrender application and the DEP permits. So this is an aerial view of the site as it is today, and the top spillway up here it would be the east, and then the west spillway would be down below. The powerhouse you can see in below the west spillway and the tail race, and then the lower falls. And there's another view of the site as it is today. And if you can see those, but it says East Channel Spillway, West Channel Spillway, Powerhouse, existing bridge, tail race channel, just to kind of give you an orientation. So what will happen at the site? Removal of 2 spillway dams in the Powerhouse, construction of a double denial fishway in the former tail race, East Channel improvements for nature-like fish passage, West Channel improvements for nature-like fish passage, and those are the channels up above the lower falls, basically where the 2 spillways are. And then the city may exercise an option to acquire certain SAPI lands for expansion of the Riverwalk, which is part of the settlement agreement, which the city is a part of, is a signatory. So this is a site configuration after the surrender of the project. And you can see removal of dam with eastern ledge cuts, removal of dam with western ledge cuts, removal of the powerhouse, widening of the channel to allow for the fish passage, and the double denial fishway in the former tail race on the lower right. So environmental changes. The removal of the spillways will lower the hydraulic control from about 70 feet to 64 feet at an average throw of 1,000 CFS. The reduced water levels will reduce the potential for flooding. After the drawdown is complete, wetlands adjacent to the existing impoundment will migrate downslope with lowering water levels. Wetlands associated with the streams and brook swales or other tributaries will not be affected by the drawdown as they derive the primary source of water from other sources. The project is not expected to have significant negative impact on the magnitude of wetlands, and existing wildlife in the project area is not expected to be adversely impacted. Water quality. Removal of the dam and hydro facility is expected to improve the water quality in the section of river between Sacarappa Falls and Mallison Falls. It's expected that dissolved oxygen levels will increase and benefit the overall aquatic environment once the spillways are removed and the river's more free-flowing as opposed to an impoundment. And the project will comply with all applicable water quality standards. Public benefits. Removal of the Sacarappa Dam and hydro facility will result in some short-term and long-term benefits. Short-term benefits would include construction-related employment, construction-related materials demand, and an increase in some consumer spending. Long-term public benefits would be improved recreational opportunities such as boating and fishing. The presence of anadromous fish in the area will allow for the establishment of new fisheries. The project will benefit existing cultural resources in a project area by reducing the potential long-term erosion at several existing archaeological sites and historic sites. The city's option to acquire certain project lands will allow for increased public access and future expansion of the Riverwalk. All of those long-term benefits will lead to increased consumer spending. So these are some kind of bullet points from the executive summary of the FERC draft environmental assessment. And really, they're all positive for the project. The surrender and amendment applications would have no effect on any federally listed threatened or endangered species or critical habitats. Historic properties would be affected by the proposed action, and the licensee is consulted with the Maine SHPO on mitigation measures for the undertaking. The licensees, and these were copied right out of the executive summary of the draft environmental assessment. So then they don't read actually too well, but the licensee's proposal to decommission and remove the dam and spillways would eliminate a source of renewable generation, but would restore the section of the Presumpscot River to a free-flowing condition. The installation of the double denial fishway at the lower falls and modifications to create nature-like fishway in the upper falls will improve conditions for migrating fish, thus ensuring that fish can navigate the section of river. Concerning Mallison, Little Falls, Gambo, Dundee project amendments, the licensee has reached a comprehensive settlement agreement with the Maine Department of Marine Resources, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, City of Westbrook, and others. This agreement, which is reflected in the pending surrender and amendment applications before the FERC Commission, balances the restoration of the free-flowing river and improved fish passage at Sacarappa Dam with license extension and removal of fish passage requirements at the other projects. So there's a kind of a snapshot in time of the permits, status of them. So the FERC permits and licenses, the FERC license surrender, the status is pending. We expect FERC to issue that license order very shortly. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the application's been filed and the permit has been issued. State of Maine, MWDCA, status permit has been issued, applied for and issued. And then tonight we're here to talk about some of the City of Westbrook permits, the site plan review, shoreline zoning, demolition, and well, not so much demolition, but the other two there are the city permits that are being applied for at this time.
We'll save our questions for later. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Public hearing portion again.
Hello, excuse me, my name is Kerry Tyson. I'm at 237 Bridge Street. I only want to speak to the issue of the powerhouse, not the rest. The rest sounds very supportive and advantageous to the community, but I am concerned that our limited historic fabric in this community is being negatively impacted. We don't have very many properties of that sort of architectural quality. I'd like to see a hold or a further investigation into the possibility with some experts in historic rehabilitation, utilizing everything from historic tax credits to grants to these sort of things. Having traveled around the country, I've learned that it really takes an expert in these arenas to give that proper investigation to these very unique properties, and I can see that piece as a real advantage into the revitalization of downtown, having seen a variety of different powerhouses turned into everything from breweries to retail shops to museums and gift shops and all sorts of creative opportunities. So I would only speak to that particular piece of this application and say we give that a real level of expertise from someone in that particular field. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Abigail Chaffee. I'm the director of Discover Downtown Westbrook, located at 752 Main Street. Speaking here on behalf of the organization, which is National Main Street Community. So as a Main Street community, we are tasked with, among other things, historic preservation. In fact, nationally, Main Street was formed after urban renewal in response to the loss of historic fabric in communities like Westbrook. Among its main peers, Westbrook is the one Main Street that doesn't really have the feel of a traditional New England downtown because of that building loss during urban renewal. So for these reasons, it's our duty to speak against the demolition of historic buildings. That said, it's important to note that we support the project as a whole. We're incredibly excited about dam removal and access to the island and lands north of the river. And we're very grateful that SAPI has agreed to sell these to the city. These lands hold immense potential for downtown development. We also hope to improve public knowledge of the indigenous history of Westbrook, and since dam removal will bring the river closer to its indigenous flows, we can develop a narrative that speaks to that history. Of course, without being privy to the years of negotiations by all parties, we would like to believe that there might have been a way to preserve the building without affecting other conditions of the agreements. Our organization has access and connections with preservation funding sources and entities, and we would have worked diligently to utilize those sources to preserve this building. This project, of course, has been in the works for many years, and we're still a fairly young organization. We just became a Main Street in late 2017, and we're around before that back to 2014, but we're sort of getting off the ground and unfortunately missed those public comment periods that Barry mentioned. We know that Maine Historic Preservation Commission was certainly a part of this process, and we're very glad that measures are being taken to document the building and preserve some of its parts. This would be a natural fit for the historic walking trail that DDW is currently working on, and it could also tie into public art projects by Westbrook Arts and Culture, and we hope to work with SAPI on the best possible use for this documentation and preservation. Finally, going forward, we want to ensure that the planning board and all community stakeholders are aware of the benefits of historic preservation for an economically vibrant downtown and consider us a partner in identifying resources and strategies for balanced solutions. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. Daniel Stevenson, I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Westbrook. I'm in receipt of a letter this evening that I think you are dated March 5th, 2019 from Maine Preservation, Greg Paxton. I just want to step back for a minute. What's before us today is about fish passage. And there's a lot of steps over many, many months to make this happen. And quite frankly, SAPI is doing everything that they're told to be done to do. They've had a significant amount of input from all of the signatory parties in this, and there have been ample opportunity to deal with the powerhouse. I want to be wholeheartedly clear about something. I spent many years in the city of Biddeford, and I've been directly involved with many historic tax credit deals. Those are not programs you just apply for and you get money to do. They need to cash flow. It takes private sector capital. That building is falling in now. There's a lot of issues with it, and there's a lot of environmental issues with it. And frankly, it needs to come down as part of getting those fish deals up to make the project work. To get an 11th hour letter at this time, frankly, is frustrating. SAPI has represented, and they've looked into this, and have said, look, you know, we've got this out there. If there's a way to make this work, they've looked at that already. It's more than just being a building that was noted in 2003 and apparently is a top priority March 5th, 2019. This city has worked very hard to raise the money, to have that money in the can in order to exercise its option on getting that island and getting the north side of that river so we complete a river walk that's pretty darn amazing. And quite frankly, on that side of the river as well will connect us to the Portland Trails. I'm a fan of historic preservation. I'm a fan of Maine preservation. And quite frankly, I think SHPO is an expert in this, and they've signed off on it. You know, the Westbrook Historical Society has. People have looked at this. Yes, nobody likes to see old buildings go. I understand that. I do understand that. But I want to be clear, trying to put some kind of a stay on something so you can scramble to put a deal together is not an appropriate way to do a deal. So I respectfully request that you move forward with this and you do not delay it. And if you have any questions, I'll be here to answer. One last thing, the historic equipment inside, SAPI still wants to work with us, you know, or the DDW or anyone else to try to save some of those wheels, and I think that's an appropriate way to move forward on this. So thank you.
Thank you. Please.
I'm just going to take a moment to pass out the 2 letters that we are in receipt of for the board to have. These did come in at approximately 4 o'clock this afternoon.
While she's passing those out, does anybody else want to speak? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. One letter is from the Greater Portland Landmarks. The other is Maine Preservation. They will both be added to the record.
Hi, can I make a comment? Michael Shaughnessy, 89 Conant, and I'm president of the Friends of the Presumpscot River. And I too regret seeing the powerhouse come down, but I just want to make everybody aware that this has been a discussion that's lasted a very long time, at least 5. And it's come to a place where we are going to get a lot more history back than we are losing by this powerhouse. And I think there's probably 5 more on the river as well at this time that were built around the same time. It is a beautiful structure. It'd be great if there was a way that could be procured and saved, but we have worked very hard on this for a long time, and what the city is going to get by this moving forward, by this hitting the deadlines, is enormous. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to comment at this point? Seeing none. Public hearing is closed. I didn't hear any questions in the comments that were made. Therefore, we will now move on to go to our regular meeting, which is now in order. First item on our regular agenda is the approval of minutes. Mr. Daniel.
I found them. Mr. Chair, I move that the Westbrook Planning Board minutes from Tuesday, January 15th, 2019, and the Westbrook Planning Board minutes for Tuesday, February 5th, 2019, held in this room, be approved as presented to us this evening.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Escheward. Everybody understands the motion? All those in favor? It is unanimous in favor. Next item on the agenda is site plan, 1 Ledgewood Drive, Regional Transportation Program. The applicant is proposing a new 8,500 square foot office building, 2-bay garage, and 11,760 square feet of enclosed parking structure and associated site improvements on the existing 5.46 acre vacant lot. It's tax map 2, lot 104, and the zone is industrial park. Questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Daniel.
I'm going to have a comment as soon as I find it. Bear with me, please.
Okay.
The young lady who presented it.
Would you come to the microphone, please?
I reviewed the landscaping. I also reviewed what you presented tonight and what you presented the first time. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for also using the strategy of, rather than planting beautiful and fabulous landscaping, not to be destroyed by Mother Nature. I think that was a good strategy. And moving it forward away from the building is another good strategy. So I will be supporting this. I'm very, very pleased. Not often enough do we have people that listen so intently that they go back and make what I feel a positive change. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks.
Good. Questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from voting on this project. I work for the firm that's representing the applicant.
I knew that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments over here?
I'm going to make a comment.
Okay.
Well, thank you for choosing Westbrook, and I like the whole design, and thank you for taking care of the landscaping. You did a very nice job on that. I really hope you've done your homework on the traffic on 22. I know you have schedules to keep, and that road is so busy, especially between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning, and then going the opposite way, 3 to 6 at night. It's really bad. So I hope you've done your homework on that, and I look forward to seeing you in Westbrook.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Mr. Daniel.
If not, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Yes, I will note that there are 2 changes in one of the conditions that was given to us by the staff earlier. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the site plan application for Regional Transportation Program for a new 8,500 square feet office building, 2-bay garage, 17,760 square feet, enclosed parking structure, and associated site improvement located at 1 Ledgeview Drive, tax map 002, lot 104, Zone Industrial Park District, is approved with conditions and the following factor findings, conclusions, and conditions as stated on page 2 through 4 of this staff memo memo dated March 1st, 2019 are adopted in support of that approval. Condition number 1. Approval is dependent upon and limited to the proposals and plans contained in the application dated February 4, 2019, and supporting documents and oral representations submitted and affirmed by the applicant, and conditions, if any, imposed by the planning board. Any variation from such plans, proposals, and supporting documents and representations are subject to review and approval by the city planner or the planning board, and the 2 financial amounts changed that the city planner corrected this evening.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Do you have any comments, or?
Oh, I was gonna second it as well.
Oh.
I'll third it.
Okay. Everybody understands the motion? All those in favor? It is unanimous in favor. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is site plan, 369 County Road, Central Maine Power. The applicant is proposing an approximate 4,247 square foot expansion to relocate a control house at the existing electrical substation, yard at the intersection of County Road and Spring Street, tax map 2, lot 30. The zone is manufacturing and industrial park. And where are they? Come on down. I only need one to talk about the security. The only comment I had during the public hearing was the security of the site. And if you would care to address that, please.
So, my name is Chad Kenny. I'm the project manager for the site. The security is still being planned as part of the project, but as part of the security, we're going to be providing cameras at the site, and it's what's called a SIP medium site. It has a particular type of security rating with the BEP and NCPP standards, which are regulatory bodies. Yeah. So, and you know, in addition to security inside the station, in the new control house, they do things to improve redundancy of equipment and things like that, and make the site more reliable, and the station more reliable. But the security is it's basically classified as the SIP site, and it meets all of these regulatory standards when it's classified as SIP.
Okay. Other questions from the board?
Yes,
please.
Let's start off with the gentleman that made the presentation. When you referred to earlier that you listened to the planning board and you would tar the entrance to the, I believe you said, borderline, the
property line.
Property line. How many feet is that? And how far is that?
Could you bring up the site plan? It's submitted a PDF. It's approximately 30 feet on both drives, but I don't know the exact dimension.
Right there, you got it there.
Okay.
But it's, you can go to the overview sheet. Go up. Next sheet, next sheet.
That's it.
Next sheet. This one. Just to give you an idea, the grade area here, the filled-in grade area, that's the area that we're talking about off of Spring Street. And the grade area here is the paved apron off of
Okay, thank you. And I have an additional question to the planner or the code enforcement officer, or both. The last thing I want to do is to put you on the spot, either one of you. So I'm going to try to be as general as possible. Okay? Other than this particular project, your experience with the city of Westbrook, how many other projects has the planning board approved that leaves this much gravel entrance or gravel pavement, lack of a better word, so when it's complete, that
We haven't had an approval where there's been a gravel drive to this extent.
thank you very much, both of you, for your candidness. That's why I respect both of you greatly. I want to take the high road. I'm done.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? There is a motion on page 5.
Mr. Chair?
Please. You want to turn your mic just a little bit? Thank
Okay.
you.
I'd like to make a motion.
No.
I don't- Yeah?
Yes,
Is it working? Okay.
please.
That the site plan application for Central Maine Power for an approximate 4,247 square foot expansion of an existing electric substation yard to facilitate a relocation of a control house and conduct upgrades to the site located at the intersection of Spring Street and County Road, tax map 002, lot 030, zone manufacturing and industrial park district is approved with conditions and the following findings of fact, conclusion, and conditions as stated on pages 6 through 7 of this staff memo dated March 1st, 2019 are adopted in support of that approval. And condition 1 is approval is dependent upon and limited to the proposals and plans contained in the application dated December 19th, 2018, and supporting documents and oral representations submitted and affirmed by the applicant, and conditions, if any, imposed by the planning board, and any variation from such plans, proposals, and supporting documents and representations are subject to review and approval by the city planner or the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Joe. The dollar figures and conditions are okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody understands the motion? Yes?
I will not be supporting this. And I'm going to explain, or try to explain why. I believe that if I vote positive, that we are setting precedents for any other person, any other business, any other utility to come before us and receive a benefit that no one else in the city of Westbrook has or has been allowed to do. Even the state mandated us to put granite curbing for over 1.5 miles for our new middle school. We absorb that. Our taxpayers absorb that. We followed the law. The city of Westbrook followed its own guidelines. And for me to vote in the positive tonight would be against what I believe the city of Westbrook should strive for. Only one vote. It doesn't matter. I believe you should have listened, should have taken to heart, and you should have made it at least to the fence line. I do not believe that you heard us. I believe you reacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Any other questions or comments? The motion is on the floor. Everybody understands it? All those in favor? Opposed? Mr. Isherwood and Mr. Daniel. The motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. So the general public understands the board is made up of 7 regular members and 2 alternatives. The alternatives vote when a board member is not here. Kim is the alternate, and she voted on the first one, which Rebecca had to recluse herself. That said. Next item on the agenda. Site plan, shoreline zoning, 921 Main Street, Sappi North America Incorporated. The applicant is proposing to demolish and removal of 2 spillways associated with the Sacarappa Dam, the powerhouse, and modifications to the bedrock to create fish passageways, natural and Denali fishways, up the falls in the Presumpscot River. It's tax map 32, lot 108 and 105A, and the zone is City Center District, General Development and Shoreline Zone. Questions or comments on this one from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Please.
I have what is probably a stupid question, but I'll ask it anyways. If you're removing the dams, removing everything to its natural condition, why is the fishway required?
No, that's a good question. And if I wish I had a pointer, but
Well,
the natural
staff has one.
The staff has one. Oh, wonderful. So there's a couple of reasons. One is this site has been altered by man significantly from at least the early records that we saw. I mean, long before Sappi occupied the site. But the goal of this project was to do everything possible to make an Addermish fish passage successful. And there's a natural set of falls here and a natural set of falls here. They've always been there. You know, if we had removed the dams and the powerhouse as it is today, under probably many flow conditions, it would have been very difficult for fish to pass. It's not to say that some fish couldn't pass under certain flow conditions, but the key for this project that I think was the mantra for a lot of, the people involved was to do everything possible to make fish passage successful over a wide range of flow conditions, river flow conditions. Mm-hmm. So when you start doing that, looking at that, and looking at all of the hydraulic modeling, you'll find that, unfortunately, under many flow conditions, fish would have difficulty getting, especially over these lower falls. So the purpose of the denial, if you could go to the slide that shows that. So the Daniil Fishway was put in here to get the fish over the lower falls, which was the most challenging. The upper falls weren't as bad, and with widening of the channels and sculpting of the ledge, the modeling has shown that nature-like passage could occur. So, the real reason for the Daniil is to get fish over this first drop right there, which is quite steep and quite narrow in here. And again, we want to make sure that we make fish passage as successful as possible. Does that answer? Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Other questions or comments? Excuse me. There's a motion on page 8. Mr. Isherwood?
Mr. Chair, first I want to show appreciation to the people that are trying to save the power building, because it is a unique building. It's in horrible condition. I don't know how many of you have lived in Westbrook for a long time, have been here, have seen what happened before urban renewal. I don't know how many of you have sat in the Star Theater and watched a movie. But it was pretty good when they tore it down and built the cinema next to Bradley's. Well, Bradley's is gone too, but the cinema's gone too, by gosh. So things come and they go. But for a lot of the buildings in Westbrook, a lot of them needed a replacement. A lot of them didn't need replacement. I think I'm going to go by what I've heard and seen on this building, say that it's time for it to be replaced. And with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
That the site plan shoreland zoning application for Sappi North America Incorporated for the demolition and removal of 2 spillways associated with the Sacarapa Dam, the powerhouse, and modifications to the bedrock to create fish passage up the falls in the Presumpscot River, located at 921 Main Street, tax map 032, lot 108, 105A, zone City Center District, General Development Shoreland Zone, is approved with conditions, and the following findings of fact, conclusions, and conditions as stated on page 8 through 10 of this staff memo dated March 1st, 2019, are adopted in support of that approval. This approval includes the certificate of approval for demolition associated with this project as required by the Village Review Overlay Zone. Condition 1, approval is dependent upon and limited to the proposals and plans contained in the application dated January 31st, 2019, and supporting documents and oral representations submitted and affirmed by the applicant, and conditions, if any, imposed by the planning board, and any variation from such plans, proposals, and supporting documents and representations are subject to review and approval by the city planner or the planning board.
Thank you. Mr. Daniel?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments at this point? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
At this point, can I have a motion to go into workshop?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All those in favor?
I'm holding it together.
we're all set to go, move on. The next item on the agenda is a site plan village review, overlay zoning, shoreline zoning, 3 Valley Square Holding LLC. The applicant is proposing a 3,300 plus or minus square foot expansion to an existing commercial business restaurant, including a new second floor event space, rooftop deck covered with a porch. This is tax map 32, lot 229. And the zone is city center district, village review overlay zone, and general development. If we hadn't gone into workshop, the public would not be able to speak on any of the items that are in workshop. So that's the reason we went. But sometimes I get lost, so if you really want to speak, make sure that I see that you do. Somebody's going to make a presentation for us.
My name is Mark Sengelman with Alpha Architects. James and I started this project back in 2008, and we had issues with getting water to the site for the sprinkler system. And now that those arrangements have been made, we've been moving forward with this. Can I get a show of hands from the board? Are you all familiar with this restaurant? Is anybody not familiar with it? Good. It's been an institution in the city for a long time. So, okay. So here is the existing restaurant as we know it now. We are adding a second floor event space with an open deck on the front, and on the rear there's a closed porch on the back. This is facing the Riverwalk, so this is a new entrance with a stairway that'll take you directly upstairs to the second level, and this is going to become the new main entrance to the building. This will remain an entrance off of Valley Square, but it won't be the main entrance anymore. However, it will function as the ADA entrance to the building. There's a mustard colored panel here. We're going to repeat that to strengthen that here. And we've got the same two-tone of gray that's on the building, so we're repeating that around the back. And then we've got a little brown coping and brown windows and doors, as you can see here. Can you go to the floor plan slide, please? Floor plan. Great. So this is the floor plan as it exists right now. These bathrooms right now are not code compliant. There was an old stair here that we're going to remove and add a new stair in this area, and that's the old bulkhead. The remainder of the restaurant's going to remain just about as it is. We are going to fill in this little spot here, and we're going to do a new entrance, airlock entrance in this area. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. That's the basement. You can keep going. There we go. Okay, so here's the first floor. So now these two bathrooms are going to be made ADA compliant. This is our new grand stairway that has windows that look out over the Riverwalk, and people will then come in here and go up the stair this way and get to the second floor, or they can come in and come right into the restaurant. Hostess station will be right in this area. This is that little booth I was talking about. From my understanding, this building used to be 3 separate businesses side by side by side. So this was an entrance, and there was another entrance here and another entrance down here. So we're now making it all one continuous business. This is the new airlock entrance that I spoke about on Valley Square. So that will take you right directly to the upstairs, or you can go right inside to the restaurant. The kitchen will be largely as is. However, there's a cooler in this area. We're going to put that down in the basement, and this is going to become a prep kitchen area. But this is where the cooking will be done, and this is the dish area. Next slide, please. This is the second level. So this is where you'll come up the stairs, and you'll have a great view. This is platforms as you come up out to the Riverwalk. You'll enter. So this will all be indoor, indoor, indoor connection. We'll have 2 ADA bathrooms up here. And so this is our new event space with a small bar up here and a warming kitchen here. This is that porch. That's a flex space. We're going to use that to store some of this outdoor furniture in the wintertime, and so on. This is our deck out here. This is showing, there's a couple of places for cornhole, so it gives you kind of a feel for how big that is. But fabulous views, and if the ice disc comes back, you'll be able to see it from up here. Next slide, please. Oh, that's all we need to go. Can you go to the site plan, please? The boundary survey would be great. Thank you. Oh, sorry, that didn't get rotated. Oh, that's fine. So here's Valley Square up here. And so Frog and Turtle is part of a larger building. Hello. And so what we're planning on doing is there'll be a slight separation here that will be completed a year from this spring. There is parking back here currently, and the Fire Chief Turcotte asked us to remove that. As you may know, there have been some dumpster fires back here and so on, and dumpsters may get relocated. All the restaurants are working together to relocate those dumpsters away from the buildings so that in the unlikely event that somebody does set the dumpsters on fire again, it doesn't threaten the buildings. Also, not having the vehicles here makes it much easier for firefighting should there ever be a problem with that. As part of our work, we will be fully alarming this building and providing an automatic sprinkler system that'll be tied to the city fire department. And I believe that's about it. Oh, landscaping wise, lighting, so on. Do you mind going back to the elevations, please? The rendered ones would be fine. Thank you. So there is some gooseneck lighting here over the existing sign. That sign will remain, and then we're going to add a gooseneck fixture here. We're going to repeat that sign, but on a smaller scale here with 2 gooseneck light fixtures here. These are a couple of cut-off wall packs on the back side. There really isn't a lot of landscaping on the site because it's so tight to the building. As you know, when they did the Valley Square renovation, they put new trees in. And so that landscaping, of course, will remain. That's off of our property. But there really isn't much room to do much landscaping on this site. And all the water is going to be, that's not going to change. All the utilities will remain the same, so same sewer, same water, et cetera. And I believe that's about it. I'll entertain any questions.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Dan Stevenson would like to add something.
I don't want him to say anything.
Well, I do.
Does anybody from the public would make a comment? No.
That's my winning.
Like your hairdo, Dan.
Thank you. I've learned 2 things about myself this year. One is I can't read without glasses, and 2, I can't read my writing anyway, so it makes it a little more difficult. I just wanted to make just a couple of comments on this project. The first is I've recently spoke with Fire Chief Andrew Turcotte with respect to the updated plan that they have coming before you that will end up involving a building separation piece to it. And his early indications are that he's on board with it locally, but he clearly recognizes and understands that additional documentation will be needed, and also that the State Fire Marshal's Office will have to approve the construction permitting and the sprinkler permitting as well. But they have a plan in place that he believes locally that we can work with moving forward. And the second piece is directly with respect to dumpsters and toters. Many of you are probably already aware that the City Council realizes the public safety involved in this project and in the downtown, and has approved 200 feet of water line extension in the public way so they can tap into that with their lateral to get that to get that sprinkled. And the dumpsters and the toters came up with the council as well, and I conveniently volunteered our wonderful city planner, Jenny Franceschi, and I, to take point on that in-house. It is an important issue, and we take that seriously, and so we will be working on that as well for the entire downtown, not just here. This project we're very excited about. I know the community is excited about, and they've been fantastic to work with, certainly on my end and to date. So, thank you.
Thank you. David, elevator?
No.
No, not required?
Not required.
Not even to take care of the handicap accessible thing?
The facilities on the first floor are basically the same as what's on the second floor. So they don't need.
Then if you're handicapped, you can't go upstairs then, unless you can physically walk up them. Okay.
That's correct. The state law says that under 3,000 square feet, buildings are not required on a second floor to have elevator access.
Okay. That
So,
was my question.
and reiterating what Dan said, this very morning I was at the State Fire Marshal's office at 9 o'clock, and I met with Greg Day, and we reviewed this project, and he was very supportive. I just need to get him a few more documents, and he's going to write a letter of his review, and we've applied for a fire permit and an ADA permit, so we expect those permits to be coming shortly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Kim. You can go first.
I just have a question in regards to the entrances, and what's the reasoning for putting the main entrance at what you refer to as the rear of the building?
Right.
Instead of having it at what you even refer to as the front of the building?
The purpose of that is James's recognition of the activity on the Riverwalk, and allowing their patrons to come in that way, and really to make it a more exciting entrance in that area.
Thank you.
I have no, I think it's great. It's the perfect location for a two-story building down there.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm finding it really exciting, but I do have one question. It looks like the kitchen is expanding. Does that mean, James, you can make beef Wellington more than once a year?
Thank you. Yes.
All right, I too am very excited. This is absolutely an institution. I'm thrilled. I'm very happy for you, James. And I'm thrilled to see the first building down here go up. And I hope that others can follow suit. I don't know the structural implications, but thank you for being a leader. This is not our purview. I can't stand it. I have an itch to scratch, which is on the upstairs, wouldn't you want to move the bathrooms over towards the east side so you can get a nice big line of windows there out over your porch? Just a thought. Push their both bathrooms back and just line that thing with windows so you can look over to the outdoors for the 9 months of a year when it's not outdoor seating time. Sorry, I just had to say it because I want everything to be excellent. I'll be there. Good luck.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Daniel.
I have several things to say, okay? And one of them is I have to disagree with you. Is it Mark?
Yes.
There's always room for landscaping. It doesn't have to be traditional. You need to go for a few more meals at the Frog and Turtle because then you start thinking outside the box. There's nothing wrong with hanging landscaping.
Okay.
I've always liked to see not huge amounts, just greens and flowers and things that can last, especially during the winter season. So that's, and I am going to look for landscaping, but not necessarily huge amounts, but thoughtful landscaping. And then let's go and, since everyone's afraid of the chef, I'm not. Chef, thank you. And she was right. She hit the nail on the head. You're the first one to go up. And you've done your homework, you've taken time, 2005, you've taken 14 years. You're a teenager now. You've taken time. You've taken time and you've paid attention, and it can tell anyone who will listen to you and participate in your restaurant will realize how much you love Westbrook, and that's important. And I'm glad you chose to come from a southwestern community to here. I'm very, very pleased on that. And I reap the benefits every so often with your meals, so I'm very, very happy. I am pleased on how it looks. It took one brave person to take the step. But I'm hoping as I hit my 80th birthday, which is not that far away, I'll be able to go to your restaurant and we'll be able to smile and say, look at all the other buildings that have popped up because of your vision. That's why I'm saying thank you. It's very, very important. So a little bit of landscaping to keep the old grouch happy. And thank you for coming to Westbrook. Thank you for staying in Westbrook. And continue doing great work. I have one timeline question. How long is this going to put you on the untouchable list of going there and eat?
We think we will. I gotta go to Mike. Or...
Yeah, no, I'm picking on you. I know you better than Mike.
I will say that the plan is for us to close most of July, which tends to be a slow time in Westbrook. So we will do some of the work. You see structural plans. There'll be stuff done in the basement while we're operational that they can do. There'll be some earthwork outside that will be done, and then they're going to get ready and do the bulk of it in July. So July 4th, and then they hope to have us back open by August, like the first week in August, and then they'll everything will be framed, structured, done, and then they'll work on the upstairs while we're operational. We're dinner only, so they can work during the day, and they should have it all cleaned up and stuff. Some of your questions about landscaping, though, we do put pots and flowers out in front of the restaurants all the back way. We've consistently done that. 2 years ago, we actually had growable food. Didn't go as well as we wanted. It was kind of like touched too much, so we went back to traditional flowers and stuff. But we definitely always consider the walkways in. And one, I did want to mention, too, people have been lately saying a lot about my dream coming true. The Codys who couldn't be here tonight, who are in Florida on their way back, they're a big part of this, and they're a longtime Westbrook family. And when they bought in 4 years ago, they really understood the dream and the vision that we had, and they're very strong believers in the downtown. And one of our biggest things is, you heard it tonight at least 4 times, people mentioned urban renewal. Like, we're truly on the belief that we can reverse urban renewal, and it starts by bringing these buildings back up. Our vision of maybe separating them or different things that we could do. It will be from Jack's Tie over to us, so this is the first step to get us going, and we do hope people follow suit and really truly believe in the vibrant downtown that once was, because I see the black and white photos all the time, and we just want to do the same thing but bring them to color. So definitely thank you, all your opinions. The bathrooms, when you have 2 things, you either walk in and go to a bar right away when you have a restaurant, or you walk in and you go to a bathroom, where this is going to be a little bit more ideally for larger functions and stuff. It just, to us, makes more sense that you have that location. And then you are on a deck. Keep in mind, you do have an L-side deck on both sides that we think we can get people out there at least 8 months out of the year. So, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And the only thing is, maybe I think it's a great idea of taking the parking from that, lack of a better word, triangle area, which is it's not when an exit is going to happen, an exit is going to happen there. And I think taking that out of there might be able to put a small garden there. Pot garden is not
you'll see some rooftop.
Not the pot, but
you'll see some rooftop gardens when we get it all built in
Excellent.
operation. You won't see it this year, obviously, because it'll be fall by the time it gets done. But in the spring, you'll see some pretty clever stuff being done, I'm sure.
Awesome.
And beef welling's seasonal. Like, I would do it year round, but we cook to the seasons.
And Mark, you gave a very good presentation. Thank you very much.
Any more questions or comments? Thank you for coming. We look forward to seeing you as time goes. Next item on the agenda is site plan, 590 Bridgeton Road, coastal road repair. The applicant is proposing a new 10,000 square foot structure for their commercial building with associated parking area. It's tax map 18, lot 1, and lot 2A, and it's Pride's Corner Smart Growth area. Please. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, board members. My name's James Seymour, civil engineer and project manager with Sebago Technics. With me this evening is Eric DeChambeau and Aaron Cieslik, both owners of Coastal Road Repair. This property is located at 590 Bridgeton Road on 302. This was a prior life, was a pad site for the Portland Water District. It was about a 2-acre paved area. The access resides along the side of Swenson Granite. There's an access way back there, and it goes back about 900 or 1,000 feet and goes to an open slab paved area with a lagoon. And my understanding was back in the early 1990s, that was used as kind of a sludge deposit area by the water district for their wastewater spoils, and basically let that aerate and dry out, and then would process that and move it. It was hardly used and was abandoned. For a few years now, Coastal Road Repairs leased that area from the current owners and has used that for storage of some of their equipment. What we'd like to do now going forward would be to utilize this site for their office and garage operations. Right now, the plan is, can you go to the aerial, please? This gives you a little bit better idea of the general location. The idea would be, at this point, would be to put in a 10,000 square foot or similar size structure, probably prefabricated metal, to be utilized for the garage on one level, and maybe the offices on a second floor. As you can see by the location, we do share kind of a congested area down here with an automobile sales area here, and this being Swenson Granite. One of the things we'll have to work out as we move forward, we understand might be of concern, is work out how we can better manage this entrance location here. It's kind of a shared entrance right now with the dealership. The idea would be come up with a plan that, you know, cleans this up a little bit and maybe combines that entrance into one rather than having it kind of an open area. There are utilities in 302. I believe the site is generally doesn't have much of utilities in there. We'd be extending a 8-inch water line to sprinkle the building, and also be running 3-phase power in there to operate any of the equipment they would need. Very simplistic plan at this point is to utilize the existing pad area for all their improvements. It would host about 50 combination of cars and vehicles for their crews and for their equipment. It just offers an excellent location, being located in Westbrook, close to the Maine Turnpike. They've been looking at this property for a while. The total parcel is 92 acres, and it's actually comprised of 2 parcels. This right here is a CMP corridor, which cuts the property in kind of 2 pieces. That is actually owned by Central Maine Power. There are possibilities in the future to maybe do some more up in here or over in here, but those are far off into the future. So we're here this evening. We know we have a little bit more work to do. We're working with a building contractor to finalize an actual structure at this point. But this evening, we're just trying to get your blessing to move forward to site plan review. Here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from the board?
Is that going to be a driveway or a street?
That is going to be, currently it'll be a driveway. It'll be built, we plan on widening that to a commercial standard to handle the heavy truckloads and everything. So while it may be a driveway, we plan on building it to a commercial or industrial road standard. And it may be in the future, depending on what they decide to do, would be easy at that point to convert it to a road.
Even in the worst case scenario with all the snowstorms that we have, so all the leaves and stuff are off the trees, is that area visible by?
No. It is, just to give you a reference, from the corner here of the lagoon to the back of Swenson is about 350 to 400 feet. This is all woods in between here. This road length is almost 1,000 feet to here to 302. You're looking at almost 400, 450 feet to this point right here. So you've got another 250, 300 feet of woods between that and the opening for the facility. So there's a huge tree buffer between that and 302. It's very well tucked in the woods, and if anything, it's almost too well hidden in there for a security standpoint. So one of the things we will be doing is fencing the property to protect all the, because it is so remote.
I've driven by it thousands and thousands of times, and I always wondered why there was a dirt road there. You know, a dirt alley. Yeah.
I believe it's paved for a portion of it, then it does go into gravel.
Okay. I have no problem with it, any way, shape, or manner.
Other questions or comments? Kim?
I'm assuming that the pond is stagnant water.
Yes, it was a lagoon. My understanding was this site was very rarely used, and that lagoon is probably now 25 years old or more. We plan to probably, I understand it may have a liner in it. We plan on rehabbing that whole lagoon and using it in a different way. So we'll be modifying that.
Okay, good. I can just see mosquitoes all summer.
It does have standing water in it now. We'll probably go more to an infiltration type device.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So what was the facility used as before?
I believe
it was a composting site for sludge.
For Portland Water District, for their treatment facilities.
It was a nasty, very, very nasty
I guess
project.
my question at that point is if it's being converted to a commercial space, it's not really, I think, our review, but was there any environmental studies done with the purchase, or is there anything being done?
There's nothing on the site. The only thing that would be looked at, and we will look at that, is the lagoon itself. Other than that, there's nothing else on the property.
But the past use of it, you don't think would have caused any type of environmental?
Where it was just sludge, no. The only thing we have a concern about, we'll look at this here from a contaminant standpoint, if anything. But the sludge was, I understand it was nasty, but it was natural.
Oh, all right.
I think they composted leaves out there too. So, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item, site plan, 15 Saunders Way. J.B. Brown and Sons, the applicant is proposing a new 40,000 square foot warehouse office building, tax map 42, lot 13. The zone is industrial.
Good afternoon. My name's Dan Riley. I'm an engineer with Sebago Technics, and we're here on behalf of J.B. Brown and Sons to discuss a proposed 40,000 square foot warehouse building that's going to be called Building 600 at 15 Saunders Way, the former Saunders Mill site. Ben Barano from J.B. Brown is here as the applicant, and can answer any questions that that you have that I can't answer. The project, as proposed, is at the former Saunders Mill site that J.B. Brown and Sons acquired in 2004. We were last before the board for a project at this site in 2016 when the applicant constructed a 60,000 square foot warehouse building immediately to the east of the proposed facility. So the Brown, Jen, can I borrow your pointer? The project is located sort of in the southwest corner of the Saunders Mill site. The Westbrook Arterial is kind of down in this area, and Saunders Way comes up from Larrabee Road up this direction, terminating in the turnaround there. The property was last developed in 2016 for the construction of a 60,000 square foot warehouse building here with loading docks on the east side and a paved apron on the west side. The area of the site where we're proposing the development is currently partially paved, and the unpaved areas of the site to the rear here were former mill yards that were used for decades as part of the mill operations. Since the mill ceased operations, some of that area is revegetated, and so it is currently grown, but from a permitting standpoint, the DEP has confirmed for us that the project won't need a site location permit. Only the 60,000 square foot building that was constructed in 16 and the proposed 40,000 square foot warehouse building would count towards the site law threshold. But we are treating all of the impervious area that we're constructing, including the redeveloped or the regraded and paved areas along the edge of the existing pavement that will be disrupted for the building. The new building and all of the new paved apron in the darker gray will all be treated at the rear of the site. The proposal for that is, if you're familiar with the site or if we have an aerial photo, there was a former mill pond that was constructed right here that was used for mill purposes, and we'll be converting that over, excavating it and converting it over into a subsurface gravel wetland system to provide stormwater treatment for the facility. Some of the board members may recall that when we used a similar approach for the stormwater treatment for the warehouse building here, building a similar gravel wetland area there. The building as proposed is 40,000 square feet. That we don't have an identified tenant. It's intended to be able to be partitioned into up to 5 8,000 square foot units, kind of as you see here, with the idea that different tenants or an incubator space can reconfigure the inside of the building to suit their needs. Each unit will have parking and entrances, or depending on the number of units, across the front of the site, and loading docks to the rear. The project is served by, this project site is served by all existing utilities. Power comes in, was some recently installed underground power for the 60,000 square foot warehouse building here will feed the building. The water main for the facility runs through the site and was recently upgraded as part of the warehouse development, and a new fire line meter pit was installed in about this area in 2016 to provide water service. Natural gas is on site as well. The project will be served by a new lift station similar to the warehouse adjacent that will lift the sewage from the building site up to an existing manhole on the property, where it then traverses the site and runs through to the city's public sewer. Regarding abutters and the location of the property, we don't, in the packet is a boundary survey of the site. We see a portion of here. There are residences along the west side abutting the property. This area here is about an acre parcel that runs back to about here and comes up, that's owned by, it's contiguous with the site and is owned by the site. So the two closest abutters here and here, one is separated by a right-of-way that comes down through, and the other residence sits about here, and will be not shown on the rendering, but we'll be providing some landscaping along this, where we can't maintain the existing vegetation that runs along the property line here. There'll be screening vegetation wrapping around that corner to screen the new building from the abutter here, and similarly landscape plantings up in this area to screen the site from the abutters nearby. Like I said, it's an existing facility with existing utilities. The general flow, or how the site would typically be used, access from Saunders Way comes up, and the circle, I'm sorry, I drew it, I indicated down here. Saunders Way, the turnaround for Saunders Way is over in this location. Trucks that currently access the site generally come up to the site up in here to access loading docks against the existing mill building. They can also come in and access loading docks at the rear of the warehouse built in 2017, and then circulate onto the site, be able to access the loading docks at the rear of the building with the ability to turn and exit out that way. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions or talk in more detail about anything you'd like to know about the proposal.
Thank you, Dan. Questions, comments? Welcome back to Westbrook, Mr. Verano.
I guess the only correction I would have, it's a 40,000 square foot building and potentially 8 separate 5,000 square foot tenants, not 5 8,000 square foot tenants. So we're working on, we have a 20,000 square foot user that we're talking to, but we do like the flexibility. One problem we have seen with the larger building is a 30,000 square foot tenant is more difficult to find, and so we think having the ability to have multiple tenants would work well. And it'll be a lower building. The building that we built for Maine Beer Company is 34 feet, and we think this will be roughly 22 feet, similar to the addition we put on the Westbrook Family Services building, which is right beside it there. It's similar Butler prefab build.
Questions or comments from the board? No? No?
I have just one.
Sure.
And it's rather simple. It says proposed warehouse and office building. Is the office part of the warehouse business, or is it possible that it's going to be office space?
No, I think it would just be, and at this point, it's just ancillary office to whatever warehouse or manufacturing. Okay.
Yeah, and I can clarify that. I'm sorry, I didn't. When we were looking at the site and planning for the to make sure we had enough parking, we assumed that an office use might occupy up to 25% of that space, just for the purpose of determining anticipated sewer flows and the parking that would be required for that. But as other sites have been primarily warehouse space, but there's flexibility for another use to come in there. One item I didn't mention, that when you see the application come in, the lighting, I didn't discuss that. It'll be primarily wall-mounted lighting at the front of the building and over the doors at the rear, with 3 pole-mounted lightings across the back of the site there, and the fixtures and pole mounts are the same that were presented with the warehouse building adjacent to it, so it'll be consistent with that. So that's the only lighting that's proposed on the site, is at the rear of the building, and then some lights across the back for security reasons with the loading docks.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize if I missed this. Is the southern end of the building, is that depressed for loading on that side of the building opposed to the front? Right.
Yeah, it kind of follows the natural terrain, does that. The site actually slopes about 5 feet from the edge of where some of the existing pavement is here back to near where the top of that pond is. To give some perspective on what the terrain does, the bottom of that gravel wetland, which is about the bottom elevation of the old mill pond, is at elevation 72, and the new building will be with a floor elevation of about 80, almost 83. So we'll have a 4-foot loading dock across the back. It slopes about 1.5 to 2% back to the edge of the parking from there. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for the natural terrain, it's kind of deceiving actually when you stand out there. It doesn't appear to your eye that it drops as much as it does, but it's relatively steep back there.
Rebecca?
Just a couple of comments. I actually live on the Forest Street side of the site. I think having a building there might be helpful as well there's a lot of cut-through traffic that comes through there. So with more parking and more activity, that might help cut that down some. I do think buffering along the residential area is a good thing, and I would recommend as much as possible. And I like the idea of cleaning up that pond that's back there. It's pretty gnarly. So cleaning that up will be good. So yeah, just the traffic. Hopefully this will be another deterrent from having people go flying through there like they do.
The building, we actually, Vin and I discussed that quite a bit. The building was actually sited and kind of located to try to channelize some of that traffic, understanding that you have some load trucks that are sort of accessing the loading docks on this side that are there most of the time and kind of form a little bit of a visual barrier there. So we tried to set that and arrange the parking to alleviate some of the cut through, but it's gotten somewhat better with the family services development particularly, but it's still, people go pretty fast through there.
Any other questions, comments, anything? Dan, I'll tell my wife that you were here.
Okay.
Ben, I'll tell my son you were here. So.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is ordinance, zoning map amendment, industrial zone. Proposed amendment, rezones parcel 4230-13 to industrial park district to bring the parcel up to date with the current zoning district and associated standards of Appendix A, land use ordinance.
The parcel in question is the parcel that we just got done talking about, which is the very end of Saunders Way. It is designated as an industrial district, which we currently do not have an industrial district in our language. There was, during the course of the last zoning map discussion, and it was a complete rezoning map. There was a lawsuit that did occur regarding this specific parcel. If anybody remembers that Walmart was part of the discussion at that point, this parcel was supposed to be rezoned as gateway commercial. The ensuing lawsuit ended up reversing the zoning because of some glitches in how the process was conducted, and it was remanded back to its original zoning. By the time it was remanded back to its original zoning, our map had already been changed. And at that time, there was no movement to try to rezone it at that moment. So we have let it sit in this state for some time. And at this point, the property owner, J.B. Brown, would like to have this lot be brought into current zoning status. So in looking at the uses that are on the parcel and looking at our zones that we have currently in the city, it made the most sense to rezone this parcel to our industrial park district. In looking at the two districts that we have before you, which one is the original district, the industrial district, and then the new district, there are uses that will be removed from use, such as a junkyard, auto repair, those uses that might be less compatible with the surrounding residential neighborhood. So we felt that the uses on that parcel were warehousing, daycare, which are all currently permitted uses within the industrial park district. In discussing this with Mr. Verno, he did agree that this made the most sense to move forward to rezone this to industrial park district.
You want a motion to go to public hearing?
Yes, sir.
You look on page 15, it basically spells it out on that. If anybody has any feedback before we get to that point, Mr. Daniel?
Are we able to make a motion?
I'm sorry, not so much make a motion, but at least the indication of the board that we can move this forward.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I have no problem.
Okay. Everybody on board with that?
I just have a question, but
I don't know.
Time for questions? Or?
Go ahead.
I noted, I think it was in the memo, that the change doesn't make any use non-conforming. They're just looking briefly at the space and bulk standards of the old district to the new one. there are some new space and bulk regulations that weren't previously there. Landscape factor, footprint factor, stuff like that. Have you reviewed those to see if the project or the existing uses would still be in conformance?
We have not specifically looked at those components, but as part of the project, we will discuss that with Mr. Verino to make sure that his project will be in compliance with those.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. You would? Mr. Spiller's gone to sleep. The last item on the agenda is an ordinance amendment, Chapter 5, subdivision and site plan review. The proposed amendment reorganizes and clarifies the subdivision and site plan submission requirements for review process. Madam Planner.
At the request of a board member, we were asked to look into how to incorporate into our subdivision standards the use of a landscape architect and how to require standards that other communities have as part of their subdivision ordinance. If you look at Falmouth's ordinance, they require a landscape architect to be a part of the design team on their conservation subdivisions. We don't have that particular type of subdivision in Westbrook, so we were looking at potentially maybe a lot threshold, a unit threshold that might trip a trigger that we would then look at. The incorporation of a landscape architect must be a part of the design component as far as laying out the project. What we wanted to have as a discussion tonight is feedback from the board on how they felt about the standard, and if they would like to maybe tweak or add any other comments to that. And I don't know if we want to just speak to that point first.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Joe.
Regarding the landscape architect component, I definitely don't think it's a bad idea. You know, it's kind of project specific, but I understand you can't really put that in the ordinance. There was a suggestion I had for the language on page 7 for the sketch plan submission requirements, where you say a multidisciplinary team of licensed professionals. If you could add that, licensed professionals. That includes surveyors, architects, engineers, landscape architects. I guess one question is, if you're working on just a land subdivision with no buildings, and would an architect necessarily be required, and would this statement make it a requirement they be part of the design team?
So based upon this statement,
yeah,
just a land division would require it. So that is a point of discussion that we did want to have with the board is, are we looking at all types of subdivisions? Are we looking at multi-family? Is 5 too low of a threshold? So we sort of gave you something to start to throw darts at. And then we can kind of hone in on what we truly think is the appropriate threshold or the appropriate process that you're really trying to achieve the design components that a landscape architect can bring.
I don't know how comfortable you are with it, but I'm comfortable adding a sentence like, as deemed necessary by the city planner. I mean, I feel confident in the planning department to determine when that's required.
That puts a lot of power in my hands, Joe.
That's true.
I'll fess up. I was the planning board member who requested this.
You were?
In case you
Oh,
didn't
I'm
know that already. I think, I don't know if maybe looking at it from a density perspective is instead of a threshold of 5 lots, or even if it is just a division of land for a subdivision, I don't want to overcomplicate it for people who own several acres that their grandparents left them and they want to just do a simple subdivision. But I do feel pretty strongly about having a landscape architect laying out developments when there's a certain density to it. Like the project on Spring Street, I think we would be looking at a much nicer project if this language had been in the ordinance, and you wouldn't hear people saying Risborough ruined Westbrook by putting that development in, which I've heard several times, and I tend to agree. So I'm happy to see that this is moving forward, because I do think that we have a lot of large parcels of land, especially off of 302, that will eventually be developed, and I think we should be ready for it. And just require thoughtful neighborhood planned community design to just really keep Westbrook a place where people want to live. So I don't know if looking at it from a density perspective makes sense. And I'm not opposed to what Joe just mentioned as deemed necessarily by the planner if maybe it's under that threshold. So then we still have some control if a project comes forward. And it is a 5-lot subdivision, but it's a pretty unique 5-lot subdivision that should be integral to the neighborhoods around it. I think having the ability to have some say in that would be a good thing. So I don't know if it's a combination of the two.
Just a point with the as deemed necessary by the city planner, or the threshold, the density. The way this is currently set up, it does give the applicants the ability to request from you to not have that standard apply. So it has that as a requirement, but they can come to you and say, we feel that this is not necessary for this land because of this, and then you can weigh in on whether you would like that to come back.
So I have a different set of questions just to make sure I understand. I keep going back and forth between two things. One is on page 7, subdivision sketch plan submission requirements A. Blah, 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 for subdivisions of 5 or more, multidisciplinary of teams of professionals, I would agree, licensed, that includes surveyor, architects, engineers, and landscape. Does that mean literally a surveyor, an architect, and an engineer? Is it like all 4, one of each? You got to have a, okay. So that's, so, and that's honestly, I mean, because I'm generally in support of this, but further than I realize. Then on page 9, number 22, landscaping plan for subdivisions of 5 or more, a landscaping plan stamped by a landscape architect. So that's the landscaping plan. That's the where do the trees and so forth. That's not about grading and drainage and layout.
Correct.
So, okay, so part of me, I just want to clarify that. And probably, I know like Sebago Technics and a lot of those groups have a landscape architect on staff who probably does that, but often they don't, and that's when you see the with all due respect to civil engineers, the line of arborvitae and whatnot.
See what they're trying to do to us, Joe?
Sorry.
And their leader is sitting right up there, and she's one of us.
I'm just processing this in my head. So going back, okay, so I think that's terrific. Going back to the A, you know, honestly, I think it's great. I think it's great. I mean, I think we can't, or I'm not sure how we can mandate the use of those people. So if I'm Joe Schmo developer and I've got 8 whatever, and I don't want to spend a lot of money, and I was going to go to Hancock, I'm thinking more from the architects. I was going to go to Hancock Lumber and get stuff from a plan book. And I was only going to use, if I'm using Sebago Technic, their landscape architect to do my planting plan. Again, I'm just processing. I think I got to think about it some more. Yeah.
The component of how do you ensure that the landscape architect has actually participated in the plan? So any project that comes forward could say that they had a landscape architect on the team. As to how much input they truly have in the process, a lot of that does depend upon the client. So for instance, 48 CV Street. They came forward with a landscape architect in the lead.
In the lead.
And how they laid out the project and how it looked, it does have a different feel, and I can say this because I'm part of that other brotherhood, is that it does have a different feel than when a civil engineer takes the lead.
Isn't it better?
Wow.
No, wow. No. It's greener.
It did hurt a little bit. But so I think that I know what we'd like to achieve.
Yeah.
I don't know as if we can always mandate the professional to take the lead on the project, but that is where the board and staff can push at least back on a project. We can do what we can on projects to push back and say whether or not we feel that this flows with a neighborhood, whether we have some architectural assessments in our subdivision and site plan sections that we can try to dig a little bit deeper into. This is another tool in the toolbox for us to be able to utilize. How we want to sharpen that and use that in the future is really how the purview of the board.
I have a follow-up, which is I know Falmouth is one model that you look at. Do they include architect in their language or just landscape architect?
I think it's just landscape. It's this language. So
it is this language.
Yep,
okay.
They do use architect, engineers, and landscape architect.
Yeah, I mean, to be brutally honest, I was surprised to see architect there. I almost think that's going to be more of a hardship pushback than landscape architect in the residential world.
I can see that being part of the team if you're doing a multifamily project. So we go to 48 CV Street, we go to Ryan Lee's 12 unit on Main Street. Those projects need an architect to participate on their team. Now, when we have just a straight land division, no, we don't need an architect to necessarily be a participant on the team, but we still might want that landscape architect to facilitate and help with layout, design, components.
But when you talk about those two projects, and I'm with you, I'm thinking of the difference between 5 single-family houses and a building that has, say, 3 or more units.
And maybe that's where we're, maybe the straight land division isn't necessarily what we're trying to hone in on more so, is that we are sort of going towards maybe the multifamily projects are really where we're trying to push and facilitate on the utilization of the landscape architect.
Might it be that there's a different threshold for the landscape architect than the architect?
Right.
The two different beasts.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, for lack of anything else, I'm happy to have more discussion. The 5 seems like a good point, but I'm happy to, until given another good idea for the site piece, for the landscape architect involved in the layout and the division and the siting. The architect piece, I think, gets trickier without coming up with a laundry list of scenarios. That's what you guys are good at.
And again, like Becca reiterated, every standard that is stated in here, an applicant has the ability to request a waiver from. So if they feel like their project is of a benign nature, that though that team is not necessary because of the nature of their project, that's something that can come to the board for that request, and you can make a decision on that.
I think it's a great step in the right direction. I think given all the open land that's changing hands and it's ripe for development, and it's where it should be developed, right, sort of on the core. It's great to get out ahead of this. So I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate Rebecca bringing it forward, and you guys taking it so much even further.
To expound on all the other red that you see in this in this rather large document, there was a series of reorganizations that we wanted, or we've been wanting to make for quite some time, and we figured since we're touching this section that we would take the opportunity to try to facilitate that. There was sections, or rather criteria, that was in our final submission that really should have been more of either like a sketch or an initial submission requirement. So we have made some shifts in where those components come into the process. There was some components that we don't have until we are post-process, such as a performance guarantee. That is always a post-process component that we do when we're about ready to start construction. So we wanted to adjust some of the requirements, and just because we love, or I should say Becca loves rewriting code, we're trying to reorganize the section of site plan and subdivision, as it is slightly disjointed throughout the document. So we are looking to try to make it flow better.
I have one more question. On page 21H,
That's all I have.
is that already in the ordinance, or is this new?
That is already in the ordinance.
It is, okay.
Yes, so the intent of this is, there's a bit of a consolidation that's happening. It's not, we're not removing any of the standards, but there were several standards that were listed towards the end of the chapter on page 43, for example, the development impact fees. And it wasn't completely clear how it's set up, if that's pertaining to site, if that's pertaining to subdivision. So our goal here is to have all of the site standards together and all the subdivision standards together, so you're not jumping throughout the chapter to try to figure out what you're looking at.
I just hadn't seen that because it's not in red, but makes sense.
Yep, if you go to the end, you'll see all of those are crossed out, and
I see that now.
and then they're distributed throughout the appropriate sections.
Cool.
I did. No, I can say this and then you can go, Joe. I did urge everybody to take it home with them and read through it thoroughly. Then we'll be coming back to put it on the agenda someplace to have a public hearing, maybe not, we'll go over it again and then have the public hearing.
Sure, absolutely.
Yep.
Is there a time frame you'd like us to bring it back to you? So, you have an April 2nd meeting. Would you like us to bring it back under workshop on the April 2nd meeting for further discussion?
Depends on what else you have on the agenda.
We can also split this apart as we go forward into the three pieces that they were kind of presented tonight. This was intended to be a 1 point amendment, but it grew from there, and I think as it grew, we saw that it was really 3 separate amendments, and so that could, some are more complicated than others.
I personally don't find it cumbersome to have all 3 together You know, as long, I mean, maybe it's not great at the end of a really packed agenda, but that's just my opinion. They kind of relate, and let's just do it. It must be easier, unless the workflow is too much for you guys, but doesn't bother me.
Plans to sign? I don't know whether you and Joe have run across it in your engineering career. It's the red pencil syndrome. Once you put a plan to be reviewed in front of an engineer, the first thing he goes for is his red pencil.
I have purple now.
When I look at this, I say, well. But anyway.
We had
all right.
fun with red.
Is anything else to come before the board right now tonight? No, 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 no. We're done.
Thank you.